Welcome to the Battle Ready podcast, where we know that every single day is a battle. This show is about equipping you mentally, physically, and spiritually to win the daily battles. I want you to become totally free, whole, and powerful. It's time to step into your battles equipped and ready to win. I'm your host, Dr. Kalie Judge. Let's get battle ready. Well, hello everybody. This is Dr. Kalie with the Battle Ready podcast. I am excited. We have round 3, the final round with Coach Joe Giustino. What's up, Joe?
Hello, everybody. How are you today?
You know, I'm doing good. He came in today. He's like, "You're in a good mood," and I'm like, "I know, I am in a good mood."
Good to see.
And the reason why, which is not the only reason why, but one of the reasons why, was when I put my jeans on today, I found $100 in my pocket. And I'm like, this is just going to be a great day. So that's why I have a smile on my face.
Perfect.
There's
always signs.
There's Jesus all around us. So
Absolutely.
That's another reason why I have a smile on my face. We have so far gone through how to discover our identity, and we've gone through how to navigate through our life journey and what that means, what that looks like. Today we're going to go through destination. And what that means. And I asked him earlier this week, I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And he's like, the big thing is that when we think about destination, he's like, I just think it's an ongoing process. And
absolutely.
I think that is 100% true with everything that we do, and we have to realize how important that is. Because I think that, even when it comes to like health and when it comes to fitness, like people come into this game, it's like I want to be 125 pounds, and I want to have 14% body fat, and I want to have this, and this. And so what happens once you get there? Are you fulfilled, or do you want to go further, or I want to lose 10 pounds, and what happens when you get to that goal? And so I don't believe that there's actually ever an ending destination. I think if we think in a faith-based spiritual aspect, we can look at our destination as being with God in heaven for eternity. But when does that end? Doesn't end. So
No,
is there really a destination?
No,
right?
I don't think it really ever ends.
So what do you think about that? What are your main thoughts?
Well, I got a lot of thoughts. I'm a constant rambler, but I would think first and foremost, in from the fitness standpoint, we always talk about the ending depends upon the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it's where do you start from? We talked before about starting at zero, having a level playing field, knowing what your source of energy is, knowing what your expert resource is, and then building from there. Understanding the first step and everything in the middle, understanding all the action steps, and understanding all the variables that you have to constantly be committed to on a daily basis to get the things that you want to achieve, and which is overall having a happy, joyful, fulfilled, spiritually enlightened life. But I think, after thinking about this over last night and this morning, I think one of the hardest things for each and every one of us, whether we are Christians or not Christians, is this sense of worthiness. And what I mean by that is, are we enough? Like, do we have what it possesses? Do we possess what it takes to get the things that we want to have in this world? And if we don't know what that is, how do we get started? So the end game it's really important to have a great end game, but I think it's more important to have more of a game, all right? And so I say to some of the kids, it's not the show must go on, it's the go that must show on, meaning your work daily, whether it be exercise or your job or your communication skills or your faith or whatever it is that you're doing. It's a never-ending battle. You're always going to be in the fight to the day that you die. But see, the fight changes. When you accept God and you understand his resource as your energy, He understands you. You understand he's the source of energy in your life, right? The fight changes a little bit. Doubt is taken out. Shame is taken out. All the negative ways that we speak to ourselves is usually taken out if we do the work to keep those out. So just like exercise, you got to run, you got to lift weights, you got to swim, you got to bike, you know what I mean? You got to stretch, you got to eat well, you got to sleep, you got to take care of yourself. It's a never-ending battle, all right? And I guess at the end of all this would be death, but then you go and live with the Father after that point. I mean, as Christians, that's what we believe. So I think being enough, feeling that we are enough in this world, makes it a much more smooth transition and gets us away from getting in the way of ourselves. It takes that doubt out.
I really want to capitalize on this whole "are you enough" thing.
Sure.
Because like what, as a female, and males too, it's a men and women fight, but I can only speak from my perspective. There's a battle every single day of, am I enough? Am I worthy of the things that I have? Am I worthy of God's love? Am I doing enough to receive His love? Am I doing enough to be noticed or seen by other people, and struggling with that? And I think that once we can really dive into this whole concept of, let's pause and reflect and say, if you have one thing that you can do and say about yourself, it is starting with, I am enough. Right? Right. I spelled that wrong. You guys can't see it, though.
Yeah, no, you do.
I have this written on my mirror at my house in my bathroom. And I look at that every single day. Because I know that every single day I'm going to be waking up and come in contact with some sort of battle that's telling me that I'm doing something wrong, that's telling me that I'm not doing something the way that I should be doing it. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not whatever the enough thing is. And I know, because I have Jesus Christ in my life, I know that He died for me. I know that if I was the only person on this planet, that I would be the one that He was on that cross for. And so I have to remember every single day that no matter what people say about me, that I'm enough.
Sure.
And so what type of an effect do you think that has on people that battle with this on a daily basis?
It has a huge impact. See, God wants us to believe one thing. That He wants us to truly believe that He really truly wants us to believe in His love for us. Mm-hmm. Right? If we believe that He truly loves us, what does that say? What does that tell us? That's enough. Mm-hmm. God loves you. That is enough. You don't have to battle for that. You don't have to do any activities for that. You don't have to do any acts of service for that. You are right with God. That's what we mean by the term righteous. So when you are righteous with the Lord, that means you have been accepted by Him and that you are worthy of His love. And once you believe that you have His full unconditional love, that's all that you need. We need to believe in that, though. But as Christians, it's hard because we live in this world with this defeatist attitude, right? That you wake up every morning and you have to remind yourself of that because we initially don't wake up with that mindset. We wake up with, what do I need to accomplish today? What haven't I got today? But if we were to wake up and say to ourselves, hey, I'm ready for the world. I'm completely prepared for whatever it is that I need to do. And I know I have some spiritual responsibilities. I have to take ownership over my actions. I have to ask for forgiveness of the sins that I've made, right? But I have to love and forgive, and I have spiritual responsibilities to go out there and witness and be a great Christian and be the best version of myself every single day, because that's the responsibility I have by wearing this cross around my neck and being a believer in God. That I have to walk in His presence. I have to be able to play this active role every single day. And I'm conflicted a little bit when I use this term, the work, because we say, well, we don't have to do good deeds to get into it. Yeah, but you have this spiritual responsibility. Just like you have the same physical responsibility to your fitness, you have to get up and go, right? You tell me all the time, I would rather not work out, right? If I didn't have to, but I know I have to, so I have to do it now, and I have to schedule it, or else I'm not going to do it. So you are physically responsible, right, for your fitness. You have to get up and go, right? If you don't do that, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get the outcomes that you want. Well, it's the same thing with your spiritual life, and it's the same thing with everything in your life. You have to do the work. There's a responsibility, all right, and an effort that we must do on a day-to-day basis in all areas of our life to get the things that we want. Sometimes you have to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it, and I say this all the time, right? But if you have a goal, or if there's some type of thing that you want to accomplish, whether it be from the physical, the emotional, all right, the psychological, or the spiritual, you have to actively play this role, and you have to take ownership over your actions, and you have to have control of your thoughts, and you have to get you have this like spiritual, like you got to take authority over like your attitude and your emotions, and the way you speak to people. You have to take this ownership role, right? Just like you plan your exercise, you plan your meals, you plan your sleep time, you plan your trips, you plan all these other things in your life. You have to plan how you live your life too, right? And it's just, there is really no simple ABC 1, 2, 3 with that, right? I wish there was.
So I was thinking about like when you were talking about God's love for us and that being enough, thinking about shifting backwards into our history of human life and human beings.
Right.
In order to be in right relationship with God, in the Old Testament, they used to have to do sacrifices, and it would be like 200,000 of the best calves in your flock are being sacrificed. And first of all, like my thought is like, where were these people getting 200,000 animals, right? Like some of like upwards 200,000 of this, 300,000 of this, 400,000 of this, and it's like that is a lot of hundred thousands of animals, right? And think about like just the work of having to like wrangle those up every single time there was a sin, every single time you did something wrong. You had to go get all of these animals and do all of these specific things along the way in order to get back right with what God has for us. Why did that happen? God made humans in his image, right? There was a fall. Adam and Eve screwed that up. Right? Both of them. It wasn't one or the other. It was really both of them. Adam didn't lead well. Eve went astray. Right? Then, years and years and years went by, and there's all kinds of turmoil and things that happen. I won't go into the details in the Old Testament, but all these animal sacrifices had to happen. And then God was like, all right, that's enough. You guys can't do it on your own. There's too many rules and things that you have to try to lean up with. I am going to send my son, who's been with me since the beginning. I'm just going to send him down to earth, and I'm going to have him be a human, walk through life, experience the temptations and the sins and the things that you guys are dealing with, and I'm going to show you that it can be done, and then I'm going to use him as my one and only perfect sacrifice.
Right.
And I want you to understand that I'm sending him for you. He sent him for you. He sent him for me. He sent him to the person listening on this line right now. He sent them for you. He sent them for the person that, if you're listening, like there's this person that you're like, well, I wonder if he sent him for him. Yeah, he did. No matter what they've done, no matter where they're at, that is God's chosen person. And he sent his son to die for him. And after all these sacrifices, if we can't decide and take an ownership, you're talking about ownership role, like let's take an ownership role in the fact that we are enough, right? And why? Why are we enough? Because it all goes back to the common thread again, and that's Jesus Christ and the cross. Mic drop.
Mic drop.
I'm not going to drop the mic because that'll make a big boom.
Yeah, like I did on the first podcast. Well, that actually God said that way. Believe is Isaiah in the Old Testament. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, he said it long before he even sent his son to die for us. He said, he's happy to sacrifice for the betterment of man. I think it was Isaiah something like Isaiah 53, if I'm not mistaken. He actually spoke about it, well before he actually did it. It's trust.
Yeah.
It's trust knowing that God loves us and he sent his only son for us. If we trust that, right? It's like you trust your father, you know, your worldly father. If your father tells you to do something, right, you trust that it's going to be safe, or
right.
you trust that it's going to be okay for you to do it, and then you're going to go do it. You know, can you get hurt? Yeah, you might get hurt. Can things happen in a great way for you or something? Can you have a favorable outcome? Yeah, but you trust your dad because you know he loves you.
Yeah.
Why do we trust our parents? Because we know they love us, right? But see, on earth, the unfortunate thing is that people hurt each other. And
yeah.
people have been through a lot of trauma and pain in their life. And what do you lose when you go through a lot of pain and drama? You lose trust.
Yes.
And you doubt. And you personally doubt yourself because you self-inflict it, right? You punish yourself because you feel unworthy of the love that was supposed to be there for you. And this is something I experienced early on. I had no identity when I was a child. I knew who I wanted to be. That's why I created an alter ego, right? And I fed that ego
yeah.
all the time, and it got me farther and farther away from Christ because I never knew who Christ was. I mean, I knew who he was, but not to myself. I never had that relationship. So I fed my ego.
Yeah.
I fed this dark side of my life, who I wanted to be, who I thought I needed to be, so that I could be validated, so I could be loved.
And that's the thing, is that we walk through life looking at humans to validate that.
And we do. And you're never going to get that validation. I mean, I will tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, is that even this weekend, I was struggling this weekend. I was on a spiritual high. I felt great about myself. And, I felt like some of the lines of communication fell apart between me and a few other people. And I was holding myself to that. I was hanging on this, why isn't this person responding? Why isn't this person saying this to me? I sent all these, happy Thanksgiving text messages to people. And I did all this stuff, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why aren't people responding? Like, what did I do wrong? Or, and so it's like I was putting all my eggs in one basket. I was putting all my emotional, validation, everything that, all my identity was hanging on whether these people were texting me back. I need to be validated by all these other people. And what I didn't realize is that I'm putting an expectation on people that's unrealistic, because who knows what's going on in their life.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, too, is I took this weekend to unplug my phone.
Right.
To set it down over on the counter and not look at it.
Right.
Or if I did look at it, it's like, okay, thanks. I'm choosing not to respond today, you know? And so, but we feed on the other end of that is, man, she doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't want to, not saying that happened between you and I, but that's a scenario.
Sure.
And we think man, I just sent this thoughtful, loving message to a friend or a family member. And it's like,
what happened?
What the heck? Why don't
wrong?
they want to respond to me? Or I posted, let's go on to social media. I posted this super emotional picture and all these things about how much I love everybody and all this stuff. Nobody commented on it. I got 5 likes.
Right. I know you're hanging your hat, you're hanging your heart, you're hanging everything on validation. Right? For what? You're servicing an external God outside of the God that was presented to us and gives us life, right? That's paganism, right? And it's emotional paganism, right? It's psychological paganism. It takes us away from we're servicing and glorifying a God that doesn't give back, right? It's not the true God. The true God is Jesus. True God is the one that truly loves us and says, guess what? You're worthy. You don't need that validation. I am all you need. I will nourish you. I will give you all the source that you need to live a happy, joyful, fruitful life. All I need you to do is follow this light, okay? You won't hurt yourself. In return, just know I love you. Yeah. And just believe that I love you. All I want is your belief. That's it. Your number one responsibility to me, all right, is believe in me, right? It's nothing more than that. God just wants you to believe in him, all right, and know his love for you. And when you do, right, you will be truly joyous and fulfilled. Is that hard? Yes. Why? Because there's no certainties, right? It doesn't come packaged in a nice bow. It doesn't have an Under Armour tag on it, right? It doesn't have a swoosh on the leg. It doesn't fit like the most wonderful shoes you've ever fit before. It's inconsistent. It takes trust.
So I was just, I'm glad you just went through there, because I'm like, as we're going through that process, like we just have to learn how to be content in his love and in his presence and in his rest. And I'm thinking about like what just like the season that just happened. We just had Black Friday, we had Small Business Saturday, and then Cyber Monday. And like some people waited out until Cyber Monday, and then they start buying the stuff because, you know, when's the next best deal gonna hit? When's the next best thing gonna happen? And then I see these memes of like let's say it's like a $69 tag and it's marked down to $49, and there's a sticker that's a sticker over another sticker when the actual tag price was $39.
Right.
So they actually ended up spending $10 more, but because it was Black Friday, they think they were getting a $20 deal when in reality they were spending $10 more bucks.
It's a false
and that's
claim.
the same type of thing when we talk about like these things that try to fulfill our lives spiritually when it's a false thing.
It's a false claim.
Right? And so what is that? That's any other religion. That's other things like people out there serving gods that aren't living, breathing, active, never walked the earth, and don't have that connection with what God is. Right? So we go out and we like try to fill, like there's a hole, like imagine this, like there's a hole inside of your heart. And it is the perfect size of Jesus.
Right.
And we try to go fit circles into square pegs, right? And it's never, ever, ever going to fit.
Right.
Because the one thing that you need is this size in your heart that's missing gets covered by the cross. But yet we go out searching for other avenues to fill this up. And maybe it turns into iPhones. Maybe it turns into Ironmans. Maybe it turns into weightlifting. Maybe it turns into chiropractic or Apple products or whatever it is. Like these things that are filling a need. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's drugs. Maybe it's all that kind of stuff too. Maybe it's even your family.
Right.
You know, your family can replace the intimacy of what God wants. They can't replace it, but you can put them in its place. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. So I'm gonna go right back to where we started, which is kind of metaphorical in this whole thing, right? Is it starts with I am.
Yeah.
Who am I? And who do I want to be? Right? Purpose and accountability. So here's the kicker, and this is going to start to sound pretty cliche here in what we're saying in this entire podcast. Is identity equals behavior.
Right.
What is your source?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the source of everything in your life? What is the source of the way you communicate? What is the source of the way you operate? What is the source of the way you think? What is the source of the way you feel? All right. How do you think, feeling it? It's all based on your belief system. If you believe that God loves you, right, then you follow his rules on how to operate your life. Then you won't need to be validated by all these external sources. You don't need validation, right? But how do you tell that to a person, right, that's been told their whole life too much is never enough, right? And they identify themselves with who they hang around with, okay, or what they've achieved, what they've accomplished, or what they don't have yet. All these things that make no sense to the true essence of who they are and how they feel about themselves, right? Because I'm telling you, and I know Dr. James drives a Maserati, but a Maserati isn't going to fulfill you, right? It may show that you've accomplished a certain level of financial stability, but the point is, I mean, no disrespect to him liking his car, that's his car, but the point is like some people say, well, I've got to have a Maserati or else I don't feel fulfilled. But that true fulfillment will never be there, because the true fulfillment is what got you to be able to do the things that drive the Maserati. It's you. You are the reason, because if God loves you, you're the gift who gave you unique gifts to do great things in his name, all right, which provided you a certain level of maybe status or financial stability in your life where you're able to enjoy some finer things and share those finer things with other people, all right? And, it's not bad to have nice things. Everybody likes nice things, and if you want those and you work for them, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what are you doing in between the purchase of the nice thing and, what are you doing in the meat of your life? What are you doing moment to moment? Right? How much slack are you wasting time doing deviant behaviors? How much slack are you wasting time doing things to serve an external, I'm going to say God, because it's an external level of fulfillment when really your source is God? How do you teach somebody to continue to go back to zero, go back to God, go back to the source that feeds you the most? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about here, like, let's go back to last week's episode on identity. Again, like if I took the Maserati away, what happens? Are you still fulfilled?
Right.
Is it just a thing that can be taken away? And if it is, then great, go have one. But if that type of thing, and that can even be an iPhone. That could be the brand, all the commercials with the brand new iPhone on there, makes you feel like a less than creature if you don't have the new square cameras on there and all that stuff.
It's a status.
You see these commercials after commercial after commercial, and it's like, man, if I don't have this iPhone, then I must not be cool, or I must not be this or be that. So, where are we getting our identity from? If all that stuff was taken away, do you still have your source? Are you still relying on that? And I think you talked last week about going to the well and getting filled back up within that well. There's a story of the woman at the well, and they talk about how he's like, God, Jesus is like sitting there with her, not supposed to be talking to her, and he's like, if you knew who I was, you would come drink what I have, and you would never go thirsty again. And she's like, yeah, but everybody else is drinking from this well. Like, why wouldn't I just keep doing that? And he's like, woman, if you just knew what and who I was, like, this whole thing would change your life. And just that whole circumstance of we look for these external things, and God's like, oh, Kalie, I'm with you. I gave you my Holy Spirit. I gave you this so that you can go thrive and not just survive, so that you can go achieve greater things than I ever did when I was walking on this earth, so that you can go save people and pull them out of the trenches and get their life back on track. Kalie, I gave that to you. Like, you don't have to go searching any further. Just look within. Right. So when we talk about our destination, like, what is our destination? If I were to have that Rand McNally map on here, and I wanted to get to Florida from Chicago, what would happen? I would have to take the route. But the reality is that Florida is not my last and final stop, right? I'm going to get back in the car. I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to go on another journey. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go do this over here. All these things are going to keep happening. But if I just went from my house to Florida and I didn't move, like, look how much stuff I missed out on. And so how do we take, putting all of these things into one basket, how do we take who we are in our identity and figuring that out and allowing God to come in and really just like being literal jars of clay and let him come in and mold and shape us into who we are, and then allow him to show us where he wants us to go. And then how do we find the stamina to continue on every single day?
Let go.
Let it go. Let it go.
That's what it is. Why do we hold on to like old shoes and old pants and old shirts and all this garbage that we have in our house? Why do we not let all that go? Right? Because somehow, some way, we feel that it's going to provide us with something that we expect out of it, some type of comfort, some type of fulfillment, some type of joy and happiness that it was supposed to, or you're still waiting for it to, right? Yep. Why can't we let all that stuff go? And when we do, what happens? When you purge your closet, what happens?
In my soul?
Just overall.
I mean, there's more room for different new things.
Right.
And I feel like lighter.
Right. You have more room to fulfill your heart, or more room to fill your heart. You feel a sense of satisfaction. You feel good, right? You feel purged, right? You feel like, wow, you clean the closet. You got room for new stuff. You got rid of old stuff. Yep. There's a great sensational feeling out of that, right? Yep. That's the same thing. When you start letting go of the old, you separate yourself from your previous self. The self of you, the part of you, the parts of your life that you were trying to fulfill from another source, you let that stuff go. You stop letting go of these idiotic expectations that these other things are going to feed you what you need, right? And you start accepting his love, start trusting in his love, and he will fill your heart. He will fill your soul. He will fill your life with the essential things that you need, right? And what you'll notice is that you need less. You don't need all the things that you think you need. You don't need the cars and the iPhones and the hats and the jackets and the shoes and the vacations and all these other things, because you're happy right where you are. Right? You're happy right with the way he made you. He made you perfectly in his image, right? So then what do? You maintain your spiritual responsibilities, okay? You thrive and flourish within the nurturing that he gave you, right? He makes you happy. And when you're happy, think about this. If you're sitting at home on vacation, or you're sitting at home over Thanksgiving, right? And you're truly happy with all your friends and your family, right? What's the last thing you want to do physically when you're in the house, right? And you're with your friends and you're with your family, right? And you're enjoying each other's time and there's all this love and happiness. What's the last thing on your mind? Leaving that place.
Yeah.
All you want to do is stay right in that moment. So when you're in the fight and you got all these people with you, and you have all this community of great people with you, developing your community, right? And you get to this point where you're so happy, the last thing you want to do is get rid of the people that helps you become happy. You develop this great community. You understand where it's coming from, right? What do you want to do? You nurture it. You take care of it. You love it. You support it. You worship it, right? Because you know it brings you the greatest joy in your life. You don't need to go anywhere else. Like, you don't need to answer your phone. That's why you unplug. You don't need to watch anything on TV, because guess what? TV doesn't really matter, right? It's what that person is saying and the fact that that person's paying attention because you love them, that's your family, and you care, right? Those are the closest people in the world to you. That's what God needs to be. The closest person in the world to you. The closest thing in your life.
You know, it's funny that you start talking about that, because I'm trying to think of, like, what was my favorite moment of this weekend? Thanksgiving weekend, right? My two best friends were here, which are like a brother and a sister to me. We had family friends over at my brother's house on Wednesday. Thursday we cooked this amazing, delicious meal, hung out Friday, hung out Saturday. But like, what was my favorite moment? We did a puzzle.
That's why you posted that.
And most of the time while we were doing the puzzle, we weren't even speaking. We were just in the presence with each other. And I'm thinking about, like, some of the best moments I've had with God, nobody's saying anything. And it's just, you're in that moment and receive it. Like, there's this feeling that you have, right? My second favorite moment was Thursday when we were actually cooking the meal. We were all in the kitchen. We all had these jobs, making these side dishes and making the turkey and doing all these things. And we were just kind of jiving, and nobody was speaking, and everybody was kind of just moving around and doing all this stuff.
Yeah, community.
Again, like, what does that look like when we shift that into our moments with God? Like, it doesn't have to be this loud Facebook post. It doesn't have to be this loud screaming from a mountaintop. It doesn't have to be this loud worship moment in church and get all the bells and the whistles. And sometimes it's just, he just wants you to sit there. And I think about Jesus on the boat in the middle of the storm. He's not up screaming and yelling at the storm. He's sitting there. He's like, why are you fools getting so upset about this? Like, I'm right here. Come sit with me. Look how calm I am. And so those expectations, we've got to change our expectations of what it means to be in the presence of God, because it doesn't mean this loud, obnoxious moment. It's just this quiet, peaceful, like, I can just even feel like happening, like, in my throat and in my heart right now. Like, this thing just shifted as I started talking about it. And it's like, we got to get back to that. Not looking for the big Facebook, Instagram posts or the worship moments or whatever it is, but, like, what does your 5 a.m. or your 6 or 7 a.m. moments look like? What does your drive to work look like? Is it filled with, like, hard rock and all this stuff getting louder, or is it like radio is shut off and you're allowing space for the Holy Spirit to come in, right? Like, what, you know, and I say the car thing because I know that you're up early and, like, you're boom, boom, boom for the rest of the day. But, like, I can just imagine that car ride from Elburn to St. Charles is, like, just, that's your time.
It is. And I know when I'm disconnected, I veer towards, definitely a hard rock kind of a thing. But when I'm fully entrenched, which is 99.9% of the time, I'm listening to Gregory DeCow, I'm listening to Kalie. I mean, I'm fully entrenched in some form of worship. And, or Pastor Stephen Furtick. I mean, these are source TD Jakes. These are guys that I go to because they are a strong source for me to God's love. They're a waymaker to the scripture so that I understand, because they narrate, the word for me. All in all, I think the greatest achievement we can have as human beings, all right, and I've said this before, is two things. Is understanding God's love and loving each other. But forgiveness. All right? And I want to say this is because when Eve gave Adam the apple and they sinned, all right, and they felt shame in front of God, and they put the fig leaf on and they did all the stuff where they hid, right? That was the onset of doubt and darkness in the world.
The not enough moment.
The not enough moment. Like we're not pure in God's eyes anymore. And that's the way they felt. And he said, yes, you are. But they continued to sin from that point on in the rest of the world. And then that's how humanity, continued that negative trait. So, and now that's trickled down onto us. And the point is that not being enough is been the greatest downfall of our society. Because once, if you think about it, when did we start taking, the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer out of schools? When did we stop emphasizing that connection with God? I mean, why does our currency say, "In God we trust"? But then that's like the last thing that we talk about when it comes to anything in this world. Why is it on our currency? Why is it on the thing that I would say probably the majority of Americans value the most is the dollar over their spiritual health? How do we? It's blasphemous. How do we put that on the dollar, but then we don't treat the dollar with respect? We don't respect money. That's why we waste it and we misuse it, and it's the root of all evil, right? But we don't just like we don't respect not so much religion, but we don't respect our faith. We don't respect God, right? We can't talk about that. We don't want to offend anybody, right? But it's the number one thing we go to. Most people will go to that when life is on the line and things are just cutting you and gutting you. What do people do? Pray, please God, help me, right? But that's the last thing they go to. And just think, if we were able to change the way this world thought. And Tim Tebow said this at Harvest Bible on Wednesday. He said, can you imagine out of the 244,000 churches we have nationwide, if they all just believed in one common goal, to be good to other people and just believe that there's just God has one presence, it's love, forgiveness. If they all work together, how powerful our world would be against all the nasty crap that we got to deal with: hunger, poverty, sexual trafficking, all this nasty stuff that we do to each other, right? How powerful we would be against all that. And guess what? If you think about the quietness of God, think about how much more still and relaxed our world would be. Because if people aren't fighting over the littlest things, there really isn't much to say. Like what you said, when you are at true peace with your family, when you are in the most peaceful moment of the week, or the weekend, or the day, you were still, you were quiet, right? Because it doesn't have a sound. See, real power isn't loud. Real power is just a presence. In the presence of Jesus, in the presence of God, in the presence of our Father, we are truly quiet. If Jesus were to come down in the flesh today and walk the earth, the whole world would shut the hell up. Nobody would say a word. Even the people, even the non-believers would be in such awe of unconditional love like that. Like you would just feel it. It would be overwhelming. Like the choke is, and you get in your throat, or the welling I get in my eyes when I get real emotional about things. That's what we would all be experiencing. There would be nothing to say, right? Because he would just put his hand up and he would take care of all that for us. So there's a whole lot of stuff.
I want to go back to, you were talking about Adam and Eve eating the apple and the shame and the guilt and the not enough moment. And like just beyond that, God comes on the scene and I just love his heart for, like, a chance to not, like, he was giving them a chance to not feel the shame and the guilt. He's like, where are you? Where are you hiding? Come out from there. And they're like, but we're naked. We got to cover up. And he's like, who told you that? He knows what just happened. Like, he's the God, all-knowing God, right? And yet he's still giving them a chance of, like, I want you to know I still love you. Like, I'm still the guy for you. I'm still the one that's coming after you, coming after your heart. No matter what somebody's done to you, no matter what somebody's told you, I love you. And then they were still like, yeah, but I don't trust that. Now all of a sudden the trust thing comes in. And it's like, but who are you and where do you come from and why should I trust you? I just had this snake come in here and tell me that you're not real or that you're not like I can be like you. Well, where'd you get that from? You know, we've got Satan who comes in and produces these counterfeit opportunities for us they look kind of like God. Right? Think about like the dollar bill, right? We've got these dollar bills that can be counterfeit. To you and I, that counterfeit dollar bill would look real. Right?
Right.
So we would go spend it and not even know that we're not actually, like, we're playing with Monopoly money. But if you had an expert come in and they started looking at it, they would be like, whoa, this is not, like, if I took that $100 bill out of my pocket right here, and I had somebody come, like, I have the $100, you can't see this, but I have it. If I had this $100 bill and I had somebody come in here and look at it and really analyze it, and they found out that it was fake, yeah, I would be devastated, but again, like, my worth doesn't come from this $100 bill, right? And so we have to understand that even with God, with Satan, with enemy, he comes in to derail our destiny. He comes into, oh yeah, you want to get to Florida? Well, I'm going to send you this way, and I'm going to deceive you and show you different ways that might look like what God has for you, but I'm going to change the whole thing and make you think you have a real $100 bill, but really it's just a Monopoly money.
Right.
If we can get past that and get back to, even in our worst moments, even in our moments where we screw up, even in our moments where we're like, ugh, I need to carry that shame. I need to carry that guilt, because what I just did, I knew it was wrong. I knew I was making a fake $100 bill, and I was going to hand it to somebody. But if we get back to this here, where are you, and why are you hiding, and who told you that you were naked? God's just sitting there waiting, saying, hey, I've got you. No matter what you do, come back to me. Come back to me. Come see me. Let's do this.
Well, the devil, he promotes doubt.
Yes.
Right? The devil equals doubt. So he was putting doubt into their mind that God didn't exist and that you were just being, Did
he really say that?
Yeah, you're being, so he tries to mislead you. So what is the devil's main objective? To separate you from God, right? To get you separate, to think for yourself. Not to let God think for you, not to live in his presence, not to live in his word, right? And his word was there to follow, all right, what he was and what he has set out for you, right? And the devil's job is to make you feel less worthy.
Yep.
That you're not enough, right? That you don't need him, right? That he doesn't love you, right? And he's not going to fulfill you. And what you do want is you want what I got. Right? And I will feed that. I will feed that side of you. I will nourish you. I will give you exactly what you want, and I will give you as much as you want, as long as you denounce him and don't recognize and believe that he loves you and cares for you and that he's the only way. Right? And that's everything else in this world, because our world says, hey, if you get this, then this is who you are, and if you accomplish this, then this is who you are, right? And I am the manager of this, and I am the leader of this, and I am I'm the chairman of this, and I'm the president of this, and I've got all these false ideals, I've got all these false labels, I've got all these levels of status, all right, and accomplishments, and then at the end of the day, I'm dying inside. CEOs of major companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars dropping dead. All right, have no family. Look at Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said I would have traded it all for just time with his family. Right? None of that matters, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to heaven What does that mean? Nothing, right? I mean, death doesn't care about what you drive. You know, death doesn't care about what you got on your wrist. Death doesn't care about, like, all the things that you got stacked in your closet at home. None of that matters. None of it matters, but we put so much value on things that don't matter.
Why?
Because we feel like it's going to give us what we want.
Because we can see it.
And we can see it. Yeah, it's validated, right? Yeah, it's a sure
Other
thing.
people can see it.
Right.
Right? And
yeah.
so we have
it's
these
a certainty.
things. Yeah, it's and then that's where let's go back into faith. Like faith comes by things unseen and unknown, and we don't. I don't know. I've never seen God face to face.
No.
I haven't seen Jesus walking across the water. I really haven't even seen like these massive miracles that people talk about. I haven't seen it. Yet I believe and I have faith that all of those stories are true. When I read the Bible, I believe that all happened. And when you read it with different eyeballs and different headgear, you see things. You go through the Old Testament and you see like, man, there was some stuff people went through.
Yeah. A lot of death.
A lot of stuff and crazy stuff. And why would they even put that in the Bible kind of stuff?
Because it's what happened.
It's what happened.
Right.
And yet we still look at that thing as just I don't, but some people look at that as just a book. And it's just another history book. And it's a thing that, you know, we always want to go in and change history to what suits our needs, what suits our views, and what suits our perspective best. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that you cannot change history. It's happened. Jesus came and walked the earth. Mm-hmm. And here's why.
Well, think about your business, right? For people to believe in what you do, for a lack of better example, you have to go through a very lengthy song and dance. Yeah. Right? In some instances, you got to make it rain. Yeah. Right? You know, Jesus did how many recorded acts of miracles, right? And still people did. We've been trying to get rid of this guy forever. Right?
And all we're doing is proving more.
Proving more and building more interest and more hope and more love and more commitment to him. All right? So if anything, the movement is getting stronger. But like, I'm going to use this example of like, you know, having the certainty. I mean, I have a client now. I was talking to him about, hey, you know, I think you know, it would be a good idea if you tried, you know, some chiropractor or something that was giving him, you know, a recommendation to do. And he's like, well, what's your ETA on, you know, the ROI? You know, and I was like, well, you know what? I don't know, man, because I don't know how you're going to respond. I don't know the level of commitment you're going to have. Like, but that's so funny because everybody wants to know, well, you know, what's it going to get me?
Yeah. And that's why people stay away from faith too.
100%. That's why I'm paralleling you and why people respond is because faith doesn't always have, all right, bells and whistles on it. It doesn't say winner, winner, chicken dinner on it. You know what I mean? It's got a level of for a level of doubt. Mm-hmm. All right? Faith isn't faith without doubt, and that's our human nature is to doubt. Why? Because when Eve gave Adam the apple, all right, and said, eat this, and we broke from that purity, right? We let all sin in, and we lost that. That's when doubt came about, and that's when the devil became present, and that's how we've been battling, you know? So it's this battle for being enough, doubting his love, and being spiritually fulfilled. That's our world, you know? That's our world doesn't support the way you and I think as much as we'd like to believe it does. Yeah. But think about it. When you buy a brand new car, say you buy a new Jeep, right? And you drive the road, what do you notice? You buy a brand new Jeep, and then you're on the road, and what do you notice?
All the Jeeps.
All the Jeeps, right? When you become a Christian, you believe in God, guess what happens to you? All the other Christians.
All the Jesus start to come in.
Yeah. So and I love this, and I love being this, and I love saying this because I'm one. I said, and now all the Bible beaters come out, all right? Pounding their Bible saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. Because now you're part of that Goonie group of people, all the freaks, all the weirdos, like you said in the podcast a long time ago. Yep. You know, what's weird about Christians? Now you're part of that dancing crowd, right? And I love it. You want to know why I love it? Because I believe. And I believe, and I'm not going to stop believing. And, you know, it's unfortunate sometimes people, you know, jump in and out of their path of faith. I know what got me here. Yeah. I know what got me here because why? I've been able to trace back from the beginning of time when I started going through all the stuff in my life. Now that I can see it and I can work backwards, I can see now where my walk is with God. And I can resort back and I can look back to all the things that I've been through and how these small little mini miracles were happening for me. You know, when I woke up in the emergency room from blacking out from drinking, right? And that person was sitting there with me, ready to take care of me. All right. And when I got hit by a car driving on an overpass because I was drinking on my bike, all right, and I got knocked off Route 30 in an overpass, got launched all the way off, like, 30 feet, flying in the middle of the air, and cracked my head open, I'm bleeding, all right. Somehow, some way, I crawled up that mountain, right, the side of that hill in the pouring rain, with no shoes on, all right. My shoes got knocked off my feet, my bike was a wreck, and I crawled all the way up, and I was able to get myself out of that mess. What saved me? I got hit by a car and lived. I mean, all the times that I did things and I pushed the envelopes in my life where I was like, man, I'm not going to make it tonight. And I lived. Yeah. And yeah, I came in, and I came close a few times where like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen?
And it's interesting to, if you're not a believer, and I didn't know you personally on that version of Joe.
Yeah.
But people have.
Right.
And now they see you and they're like, who does this guy think he is? Right?
Probably, yeah.
Because they don't have Jesus in their life. When you think about that, it's like, man, the like you're telling those stories and all I have is a smile on my face of like, that's God's grace.
100%.
Wrapped you up. And you're nobody special. Right? Like, you're not just some random person. God's like, yeah, I think I'll take him. I think I'll take her. Right? Like, there's a calling and a purpose designed over your life, and you strayed from it. Hardcore. But God saw you through that whole process and is like, why are you hiding? Come back over here. Who told you that you were naked?
Right.
Who told you that you weren't enough? Who told you that you weren't worthy? I'm right here telling you, I sent my son for you. I want to be in a relationship with you. I don't care what your relationship was like with your dad. I don't care what all that, why, I don't care for the reason why you're drinking. I want you to know that I love you. I'm not done with you yet. That's why you got pulled off that side of the road. That's why you could climb up with no shoes on. That's why you're sitting here on this podcast for 3 hours talking about Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Right.
It's not because you did some work. It's because you fell flat on your face and you gave your life to Christ.
Right.
And even that wasn't an easy process, right?
Right.
And so when people see you now, it's like, yeah, but did you know what he used to be? And I think about Paul, like Paul in the Bible, like murdered Christians. Murdered them. And then he went and wrote most of the New Testament. And people are like, yeah, but did you see what he did before? Paul's like, yeah, who cares about all that stuff? I have a purpose and a calling over my life, and that's to get the word out about Jesus Christ. And so your business now, yes, you have a fitness business, but I don't see that as like what your fulfillment is.
Not at all.
And I know that as I'm getting to know you, you're going out and pouring into these kids, and it's not pouring into these kids so that they have six-pack abs. It's pouring into these kids so that they can see the things and they can choose different outlets, and then they can look and find Christ throughout the crowd, right? Because we're all going to be sitting in a crowd. I still sit in crowds sometimes. I'm like, man, I would love to have a drink, right?
Of course.
With all my family and my friends, it's like, man, I could just have one. But that's not my calling, and that's not my purpose. That's not where I'm at. So I just wanted to kind of speak that over you a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you. Hillsong puts it right. Devil, no, not today. That song.
Right.
That was what was working as he was working through me, through all those nasty, dark moments. Have you noticed? And maybe this, I'm sure you have, but like in these last 3 podcasts, every time we voyage out to try to talk about the fitness part of this podcast, it's like there's this arm that come back, right back to like the source, right? And it's the entire everything. And I know this is going to be true in everything else, because that is the premise of your that is the foundation of what you're doing here with this battle ready. Hence, battle ready to battle the world with, in God's grace. Everything keeps bringing us back, right to this. It's like we don't even know how to go back out there, right? It's like I don't even want to think about like, I can do this, that, and the other thing. No, wait a minute. Hey, what's the goal? Where are we going from here?
Yeah.
This is where we need to start, right? This is where we start. You know what I mean? It's like when you go to Subway, step 1, pick bread. You don't. There's the first step and everything.
You don't get to put the lettuce on.
No, yeah, I mean, and then when you start altering things, you think about it. A sandwich is a sandwich for one reason, right? A sandwich has bread, some meat, and maybe a vegetable, right? And some condiments, right? That's a sandwich, right? When you start altering it, it's not a sandwich anymore. They call it the unwich, right? Where you take the bread off and what the heck is that? If you think about it, it's just a very unfulfilled version of what a sandwich should be. But we're afraid of digging into this and having some purpose or having some responsibility or substance or just how about just some self-freaking control?
Yeah.
Why do I need to eat 12 inches of sandwich? Why can't I just have 6 or 4? It's just as fulfilling, right? If I have a great little 4-inch sandwich that's made right and it's nutritious, right? Why would I need to have, a foot-long sandwich, right?
I used to be able to crush a foot-long sandwich.
Yeah, I know, and you're tiny.
I'm tiny. I could crush that.
Yeah, if your mouth's that big.
I don't know if I could do that now.
But the thing is, you don't need to.
I don't know what would happen if I were to try to eat a 12-inch
But think about it metaphorically. You don't even need that level, right? You don't need to abuse yourself and hide behind this like huge, grandiose thing to be fulfilled when you can have just a little bit.
So there's this thing in nutrition. It's called satiation.
Satiation.
And so what that means is that you are giving your body the nutrients that it needs. So it's not necessarily that you need more, but you're giving it the right things, and so it's satisfied. Satiation essentially means satisfied. So let's shift that back into the spiritual components of like, is your spirit satiated?
Right.
Is it satisfied with the nourishments and the nutrients that you're feeding it? Or are you just feeding it a 12-long, empty-calorie, nasty thing full of all this stuff, and you're doing all these things, and you're going to these programs, and you're going to these stores, and you're buying these things, and you're hanging this stuff up on your walls, and you're sitting on this mat, and you're doing this, and you're doing that. You're eating a lot, but are you actually satiated?
No, you're never.
Right?
You're never going to be satisfied.
It's not the case.
Never
and so
nourished.
We've got to get back to not doing all these grandiose things, but come back into that presence, into that feeling, into that moment. It's funny because, again, like you keep asking, like last couple of days, you're like, did we talk enough about fitness? Was it good enough? Was it this? Was it that? I'm like, I actually don't answer you very much when you text those, because I'm like, it's exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's exactly where it needs to go.
Well, it makes me think about when you didn't text me when I asked you that one question. You didn't ask me. I'm like, well, why did I ask that question?
Yeah.
Maybe that's way of her saying, hey, why are you asking that?
Yeah.
Because your main goal with this was just let it flow.
Yeah.
Let it be the way it needs to be, And I still struggle. Have you noticed? I still struggle. Sorry, I touched your desk.
It's okay. Just don't bang on it.
Yeah, right. I still struggle with some validation, right? Which will always be a major issue for me, right? It's just because that's the hardest thing.
But it doesn't have to always be a major issue.
It doesn't always have to be a major issue.
Way,
no,
right?
but that has always been my major issue.
Sometimes I would rather not see the comments and the stuff sometimes, because then it's like then I'm not doing it for people's accolades.
Yeah, my wife said to me, she goes, Joe, why are you doing this? I said, what do you mean? She goes, everything that you work for, everything that you've overcome, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Everything that you have gotten through, all the work on your faith, to fall all the way down in one day because people aren't texting you, or people aren't validating you. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, and she goes, you are a huge source of inspiration for me. You brought God into my life. For years before you, I lived in an atheist environment where nobody believed in God and nobody trusted in this. And now that I have this, I have new purpose in my life, and I feel fulfilled, and I have a greater sense of fulfillment. I have joy, and I understand that this is the way for me. Mm-hmm. Why would you do that? And I had no answers for it. I said, I guess this is my journey. This is my struggle.
Because the ego thing.
And
feeding
that ego.
We talked about last week. Like, you
Yep.
need to feed it needs to be fed, but what are you feeding it with, right? So change the types of things that you're feeding with, and ultimately, like, let's turn this back, and we're here to glorify God in every single thing that we do. There's a saying that I have on my arm. It says Sole Deo Gloria. It's to God alone be the glory. So it's a constant reminder that everything that I'm doing, these podcasts, these posts, making workouts, coming and showing up and adjusting people, going out and do this, going and doing that. It's not because I want people to see me. In fact, I'm a massive introvert. You probably noticed on Wednesday, like, I don't like to talk to people. I would rather go sit in the corner, and you and I can sit down and we can have a conversation. But if I have to, like, be in a grand place, like, I would rather not be there.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't do this stuff for me. I was talking to my cousin on the way to get my friends at the airport, and I was like, she's like, your writing has gotten amazing, and this is happening. I'm like, that is hilarious, because I hated English class in school. Mm-hmm. I don't think I can put a sentence together properly. I don't like the sound of my own voice sometimes. Right. And yet this is our 23rd episode of this podcast thing. I don't like to be on live video, and yet I do that almost every single week. Right? Why? Because it's not about me, and I have to remember on a constant basis that I'm showing up because of him and for them. And who's the them? It's whoever's listening, and whoever decides to show up and hear my voice that I don't like, right?
Right.
So we have to constantly shift back to that. Like, we'll wrap this up a little bit here. When we think about our destiny and our destination, like, where we can plan our future, but God's going to direct our paths. That's in Proverbs, right? We've got to figure out, like, not following a counterfeit version of what God has for us, but looking to the true source and just plugging into that. And even when it doesn't make sense, even when we want the validation, even when we have these things coming after us, like, we step back and we say, hey, God's got me, and He's got a plan for me.
Right.
And plans are greater than I can even imagine. Plans for me to prosper. Plans for me to do this. The reason why I tell people to, like, write out affirmations, and I don't mean it in a sense of, like, I'm good, I attract money, I this and that. I want you to write, and I have a form of that, but I want you to write out affirmations that have to do with in alignment with what Scripture is. Mm-hmm. In alignment with what God says over you. And read that stuff over your life every single day and start believing it. Mm-hmm. What do you got for last minute thoughts?
There's this great quote that I really love. It's by Phil Knight. You know who Phil Knight is?
Uh-uh.
Well, it's kind of funny. He's the creator of Nike.
Okay.
And he said, cowards never start, and the weak die along the way. And I was like, wow, I was like, yeah, that was when I first heard it. I was like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you gotta blast through things, and you gotta do all these awesome stuff. And if you're weak at heart and this and that, you're never gonna accomplish anything in life. But then I started to really think about it from a spiritual standpoint. If we're cowardice, if we don't have confidence and courage in God's love, mm-hmm. right? We'll never start looking for it. We'll never start reaching for it. We'll never ask for it. We'll never believe in it. So cowards never get started in this world. Cowards are people that hide and be fulfilled for things other than the well. And which breeds spiritual weakness. And we talked about this faithfully fit, meaning like we need to do what is necessary in all areas of our life to be fit within our faith. And our faith is what supports our existence. It supports our walk. It gives us leverage. We die a little bit every single day because we never get started in our walk.
Yeah.
So that means cowards never start, because they're not courageous enough in God's love. They're not courageous in knowing His love and accepting His love to go out there and witness and be in the fire. Mm-hmm. And die. It's not that they die, but along their existence, they die along the way. They die every single day, right? So it's like heroes die once in the name of Jesus, right? You give your life up to God, and if you go out in battle and you happen to die, but you're dying in God's love, you're dying for Him, right? And if you happen to leave that day, you're gone, but you did it for the right reasons. Cowards die a little bit every day because they haven't plugged in. Mm-hmm. They haven't given themselves to Jesus. They haven't given themselves to the source of their true existence. So you can take a word, you can take a phrase, or an example. A motivational sayings like, cowards never start and the weak die along the way. And parallel that with your walk with God, because if you're strong and courageous in Him, you will live, a joyful and fulfilled life, right? And that's all you need. But if you don't, you die a little bit every day. You never really get to truly be in His love because you haven't accepted it, you haven't believed it, and you keep in yourself, you separate yourself, and you let the devil in, and you feed external gods and external expectations. And you don't get to live that life that you truly deserve to live. Mm-hmm. You hold yourself back. And I don't wish that for anybody. And that was the person I was when I was a kid, because I felt unworthy, I felt unvalued. I tried to find reasons other than God, and when I found God, I started to live. Mm-hmm. And now I'm so happy that age 44, everything has changed gears for me. It's not even about what I do. Now it's about how I do it and where it's coming from and why I do it, right? The purpose. So my purpose now is to be a waymaker in any way, shape, or form. Whatever's going to get somebody's attention, I'm going to attack that. All right, wherever there is weakness, it says it on my door. Warning. I warn you at the door. I let you know exactly where I stand at the door in my office or in my shop. It says warning, a relentless attack on weakness. Wherever that weakness is, I'm going to help you find level playing field for that and build it from a great sense of Christianity, a great sense of love and forgiveness. And that's when you can really live your life. Mm-hmm. Don't waste 44 years to figure that out. Don't waste 2 minutes trying to figure that out. All you got to do is just try to believe and give it a chance. I tell people out there that if you haven't chosen God or you haven't found a reason for why you're here, sometimes you just gotta jump in with 2 feet and go.
My biggest question with that is what do we have to lose?
Nothing. You're gonna die anyways.
If you decide to believe, what if I was wrong about everything that has to do with Jesus? We're going over a little bit, so if you're still with us, we're gonna wrap this up, I promise. But what do we have to lose in believing in Jesus?
Nothing but yourself.
Really, we have everything to lose if we don't, right? And then I was thinking about when you were talking about how it takes a certain level of humility in order to follow Christ. And I think that's the word that we can kind of wrap this up with, is that when you humble yourself before the Lord, He will start to walk you through, help you discover your identity, and help you navigate through your life, and help you remain steadfast on the way to your destination. Right?
Yes, it's not who you are to you. It's who you are to Him.
Yeah. And so I think that's a good place to stop.
It is a great place.
We're going to have Coach Joe back on this podcast because I loved being able to talk with him. I think, again, we could probably talk for another 2 hours on this topic, just going back and forth. But we'll have him back in a few months and maybe some random live videos as well. So
awesome.
Thank you, Joe, for taking time out of your week, of your day, and just giving us a couple hours to...
this is a great experience. Yeah. I appreciate this very much, and I'm honored. I'm honored to be sitting here with you. You have an awesome platform, and so many people are going to benefit from the words that you say, but they're going to benefit from you, who you are, and you're an extension of Christ. So you are a waymaker, and that's what we are. So God bless.
Amen. All right, guys. Next week we'll start a new series. It's going to be really talking, and this is probably a good segue, it's going to be talking about being in the presence of God. I've got Pastor Sabra Diaz coming up and joining me for a 3-week series on that. And then we'll have the start of the year in January, a whole weight loss series for 4 weeks with a good friend that I'll introduce later. So if you have any questions, you can join us in the Facebook Battle Ready Nation group. I put the link in the show notes here. You can start following Battle Ready Co. On Facebook as well. Post questions, whatever you want. If there's topics that you want me to cover, let me know. We'll get into it. But I just pray, a blessing over you guys, and I pray that you go out and just be the hands and feet of Jesus, and bless every single person you come in contact with, and let them see Christ in you, because I read this quote the other day that you might be the only Bible that they ever read. So we thank you. We just ask, this to glorify God in everything that we do, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.